The Las Vegas Raiders have parted ways with head coach Antonio Pierce after just one tough season. Under his leadership, the Raiders struggled to a disappointing 4-13 record, including a brutal 10-game losing streak and no wins in the division. This marks yet another coaching change for the team in just 4 years. Since 2021, the Raiders have seen Jon Gruden leave, fired Josh McDaniels in 2023, and now, in 2025, Antonio Pierce becomes the latest coach to go. Let's face it, this season was rough for the Raiders, but honestly, the timing of Pierce's firing raises some eyebrows. He wasn't let go immediately after Sunday's game or even on Black Monday. For a moment, it seemed like the team might let him finish out his contract or give him another chance next season. But today, Mark Davis made the call to let him go. It's a tricky situation. On one hand, many fans and analysts saw this coming, but on the other, some hoped Pierce would have been given more time to turn things around. I get it. It wasn't just a bad season. It was a downright terrible one. A 4-13 record, a brutal 10-game losing streak, and some truly forgettable performances on the field. It wasn't only about the losses, but how they happened. The Raiders suffered several blowouts, with many games lost by 10 or more points. Especially early in the season, it felt like we weren't even competitive. Game after game, it seemed like the Raiders were falling short from a coaching perspective. Opposing teams outcoached us, and Antonio Pierce's weaknesses as a head coach became more obvious. Key in-game decisions, like when to go for it on 4th down, clock management, and knowing when to challenge a play, often went wrong. There were moments during the season when it felt like Pierce wasn't fully in control or prepared to handle the pressure of leading a team. Accountability was another issue with Antonio Pierce, especially when he spoke to the media. There were times when it felt like he shifted blame onto the players. A prime example was after last week's loss to the Chargers, where he highlighted the team's glaring needs, and in doing so, seemed to throw rookie quarterback Aidan O'Connell under the bus. I understand why some fans wanted Pierce gone, but at the same time, I can't ignore the fact that he was set up to fail this season. Let's be honest, no matter who the coach was, whether it was Antonio Pierce or even someone like Jim Harbaugh, the results likely wouldn't have changed. The Raiders' off-season moves, particularly at the quarterback position, left much to be desired. Once the team decided to roll with Jimmy Garoppolo and rookie Aidan O'Connell as their quarterback room, it was clear from the start that this season was going to be a tough one. It always felt like this season was going to be a long one, and honestly, it seemed like Mark Davis never fully trusted Antonio Pierce as head coach. It didn't feel like Davis was completely on board with Pierce from the start. Last season, Davis seemed to be in a situation where he couldn't ignore the voices of fans and players, which likely pressured him into giving Pierce the job. But the way it played out, it felt like Davis handed him the role with a short leash. He brought in a new general manager and made other moves, but it seemed like the front office never fully believed in Pierce. This season, Pierce didn't seem like the same person who had that swagger and confidence as the interim head coach. Maybe it was the weight of being the full-time head coach, or maybe it was the uncertainty he sensed from the front office, knowing their trust in him wasn't solid. Whatever the reason, it just didn't click this time around. Honestly, I don't know exactly what went wrong, but I will say this. Giving Antonio Pierce only one season feels unfair. The Raiders clearly still have issues at quarterback, and injuries were a major problem, especially on defense. Sure, it sounds like an excuse, but it's hard to ignore how much those injuries impacted the season. Key players like Malcolm Kuntz, Christian Wilkins, Marcus Epps, and Jaquan Bennett all went down at critical times. Even Max Crosby didn't seem like he was playing at full strength this season. The list of setbacks just kept growing, and it felt like Pierce was dealt a bad hand from the start. Of course, injuries happen to every team, and good teams find a way to overcome them. But these circumstances definitely made Pierce's job harder. Personally, I believe a head coach deserves at least 2 seasons to show what they can do. If Josh McDaniels, who had just as many, if not more, red flags, was given a second season, why not Pierce? Yes, McDaniels didn't even finish his second year, but he at least got that opportunity. At the very least, Josh McDaniels was given a second off-season before being let go. So why not afford Antonio Pierce the same opportunity? That alone makes me feel Pierce deserved one more season to prove himself. Another thing to consider is that the coaching landscape right now doesn't look promising for the Raiders. If the decision to fire Pierce was inevitable, it should have been made right after Sunday's game or on Black Monday. Even though the firing came just a day later, these small delays add up when you're already facing a mountain of tasks to rebuild this team. Now, the Raiders are looking at a complete overhaul. A new head coach is needed, as well as a fresh offensive and defensive coordinator. The roster and coaching staff will require significant changes, and it's a massive undertaking. Time is critical in this situation. The team needs to start the hiring process immediately, carefully interview candidates, and ensure they're thorough in building a strong coaching staff. It's frustrating because these operational missteps seem to happen time and time again with the Raiders. Firing Pierce only adds more uncertainty to the team's future. Many players still remain from the McDaniels-Pierce era, and it's unclear how this shakeup will affect them. There's a lot of uncertainty surrounding the players, especially on the defensive side. Many are up for new contracts, but their return will depend heavily on the new defensive coordinator and the scheme they'll implement. That will shape the team's priorities during contract negotiations. Then there's Max Crosby, the heart of this defense. Recently, he hinted at wanting a restructured contract with more guaranteed money. Given all the turnover he's endured in his career so far, you can't help but wonder if he's growing frustrated. The worst-case scenario? Crosby reaches his breaking point and requests a trade. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Right now, everything feels uncertain. If I had to guess, it seems like another rebuild is on the horizon. And, what's most concerning, there isn't a clear-cut coaching candidate who stands out as a definitive upgrade. Speculation about the Raiders' next head coach is already swirling. Two names have emerged as potential targets, Mike Vrabel and Liam Cohen, the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Mike Vrabel would certainly be an upgrade over Antonio Pierce, but how much of an upgrade is debatable. Plus, reports suggest he's a strong candidate to become the next head coach of the New England Patriots, so his availability for the Raiders is far from certain. If Vrabel is off the table, the Raiders might roll the dice on a young, unproven offensive coordinator like Liam Cohen. However, the most intriguing option is Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. His work in Detroit has been phenomenal, but there's a major hurdle. He might not even leave Detroit. With the Lions making a strong playoff push, Johnson's focus will likely remain on a Super Bowl run, leaving his availability to the Raiders in question. If Ben Johnson decides to leave Detroit, he'll likely be a top candidate for many teams. But let's be honest, the Raiders might not be the most attractive destination right now. Without a clear quarterback solution and sitting at the 6th overall draft pick, we're not exactly the dream scenario for a coach looking to win immediately. This uncertainty makes the situation even more nerve-wracking. If the Raiders can't secure one of their top coaching targets, it raises the question, was firing Antonio Pierce the right move? Giving him one more season, with clear expectations for improvement, might have been a smarter play. He could have taken an aggressive approach to address the quarterback position and tried to turn things around. Worst case, if the team struggled again, you'd fire him next season and likely have a higher draft pick for the 2026 NFL Draft. A class that looks stronger than this year's. Imagine being in a position to draft a talent like Arch Manning or Drew Aller from Penn State. But what's done is done. Pierce's dismissal doesn't come as a shock. The writing was on the wall for weeks. However, there's one interesting twist this offseason. Tom Brady is now officially a part owner of the Raiders. His involvement could bring new dynamics to the team's decision-making moving forward. Tom Brady is now expected to play a significant role in the selection process for the new head coach. This could potentially have a major impact on the direction of the team's leadership. Given his football experience, I trust Brady to make better decisions than Mark Davis, who has shown time and time again that he struggles with these crucial moves and building a winning team. Hopefully, Brady can bring the leadership and vision needed to turn this team around. But I want to hear from you, Raider Nation. What do you think? Was firing Antonio Pierce the right call, or do you believe he should have been given another season? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And before you go, if you're new to the channel and love Raiders content like this, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. That's all for today's video. I'll see you in the next one.